Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. I think we're going to go ahead and get started in the interest of everyone's time. I know that we have a lot more people who RSVP'd, but they will join us as they come in. So thank you so much for coming today. If you don't know me, my name is Jen Bernstein. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the advocacy manager at National Council of Jewish Women, St. Louis. And we are just thrilled to have you today for our lunch and learn about the initiative petition process. But before we get started, I do want to make a couple of announcements. And those of you who receive our 5 Ways to Advocate that come out on Mondays already probably know about this. But there are a few things going on that I wanted to remind everyone of. Next Wednesday, March 30th, is the statewide Human Trafficking Lobby Day. If this is an area of interest for you, make sure to contact Heather Silverman, who is my supervisor and awesome, and she will give you all the information you need to know. It will be in Jefferson City in person at the Capitol Rotunda, which is on the first floor. It starts at 8:30 a.m. and I believe it lasts pretty much a majority of the day, though I'm not 100% sure. Senator Brian Williams is kind of spearheading this, and he's great to work with. So it should be a great event. And then also, I'm sure everyone is well aware that that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is going through her hearings this week if confirmed, she will be the first Black woman in history to sit on the Supreme Court. And we are very excited about this. And we are encouraging everyone to contact Senator Blunt and Senator Hawley and urge them to confirm her. We really think Senator Blunt can be moved on this, especially. He met with her and he was very impressed by her. So really put some pressure on him. His number is 202-224-5721. And I do understand that Senator Hawley has been giving her a lot of grief this week and has been pretty much rude to her. However, he needs to know that we're out here and we want her to be confirmed as well. So you can contact him at 202-224-6154. And if you have any questions about any of this or want those numbers again, please do not hesitate to let me know. If you do not receive our 5 Ways to Advocate, please let me know as well, and I am happy to sign you up for that. You can email me at jbernstein@ncjwstl.org. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Nicole Gorovsky, and we will get started.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see everybody on this gloomy, Thursday afternoon. But what better thing to do on a gloomy afternoon than learn something? So I'm happy to welcome Ashton Kuehnel. Ashton is a grassroots organizer with the Sierra Club, and she's with the Sierra Club Missouri chapter. And in her role there, Ashton has organized around Medicaid expansion, a just transition to clean renewable energy, and voting protections. She lives in St. Louis City and is a St. Louis University alum. So we're very happy to have Ashton here today, and I'm going to let Ashton take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nikki, and thank you, Jen, for inviting me today. Like mentioned, my name is Ashton. I'm with the Missouri chapter of the Sierra Club. I've been working pretty closely with some wonderful groups like Missouri Jobs with Justice, Missouri Healthcare for All, Missouri Voter Protection Coalition, and so many other organizations across Missouri to talk about our initiative petition process, what exactly that is, what that constitutional right is here in Missouri, and some of the threats we are seeing this legislative session to potentially take away this constitutional right from Missourians. So with that, I'm going to share my screen, lay a little bit of foundation down of what's going on and talk about what we can do together to protect the sacred constitutional right. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully, let me move this out of the way. Slideshow. Can I get a thumbs up if we could see this from somebody? Okay, Jen, cool, thank you. Wonderful. So I'm here again to first set the scene. Let's talk about what's going on in Jefferson City. Right now, there are over 20 bills filed in the legislative session here in Missouri that would impact our citizen initiative petition in one of two ways, if not both. These bills' goals are to increase the threshold of qualifications to put initiative petition on our ballot here in Missouri by either increasing the number of signatures you need, putting location barriers, what have you, or they also want to increase the initiative petition threshold needed to pass. So instead of a straight 50% plus one or a majority vote, some of these bills we're seeing are asking for a large majority or 60% to 66% of approval across Missouri to be able to pass these things. So it's a very large threat and it's necessary to defeat them in order to continue to advocate for policy for the people, by the people. But like I mentioned, this is the initiative petition process is a 115-year-old tradition. And there are so many organizations across the state, across the political spectrum working on this. And these are just some of the few organizations I've been really happy to partner with in this work, this legislative session. But let's get into the real juice of the issue here. 115 years ago, Missourians saw fit to enshrine the right to direct democracy into our state constitution. Whoops, going too fast. Sorry, folks. And by doing so, we did this to provide a citizen check on our own state legislature to make sure that our voices would be heard, even if there were politicians in Jefferson City that were not necessarily hearing us. And because of this, this has been a part of our state and frankly, our culture and democracy for over a century. And history shows in Missouri that this is a very trusted process amongst Missourians. Even in a time of extreme political polarization, such as right now, Missourians have still been able to trust each other and pass things through the initiative petition process. This is seeing that ballot initiatives rank highest in voters' confidence on how to make laws. And this is because everyone, frankly, gets a chance to vote on this issue in order to make this change. We're seeing that Missouri voters, and this is a Missouri poll, are not as confident when things are passed through the state legislature or signed in executive order by the governor. But as lobbyists and political contributions hold less influence on the people who get to vote on the issue, that helps Missourians trust the initiative petition process. And one of the reasons we also trust this process is because it's already a very rigorous process with many rules and regulations. To get something on the ballot, Missourians must gather over 300,000 signatures across the state. And this often includes thousands of hours talking to volunteers of their neighbors, their church or synagogue basements, union halls, street corners, what have you. And this is a really huge lift for volunteers, organizers, and campaign folks. So we know that it is really important to our communities that we are still able to bring these issues to the ballot. But in a time when our politics are broken, the ballot initiative process has allowed us to come together and solve these important issues facing our communities, from raising the minimum wage, limiting lobbyist gifts, and advocating for healthcare. But frankly, a lot of this work is upsetting politicians and special interests funding them. And they're frankly really sick of democracy. They want all the power and the rule. And despite overwhelming trust and support in the initiative petition process, the Missouri legislature, again, has introduced over 20 attacks to the initiative petition process. Frankly, the most bills filed for this issue across the nation. Missouri has the most bills filed about this. And we need to really understand why and what we can do about that. And frankly, they're trying to limit our power because they're sore losers. People in Jefferson City, after being on the losing side of so many recent initiatives, the Missouri State Legislature are trying to take this on themselves and limit our power. Again, they want to propose changes that would make qualifying and passing the citizen initiative much more harder, if not entirely impossible, all while preserving their own power while taking ours. So with that, we're going to talk about how this isn't the first time we've seen these attacks and these issues in Jefferson City. Just 30 years ago, it was we've seen this when former Governor John Ashcroft was in office. 30 years ago, politicians were upset about some reforms voters passed, and again, try to take it upon themselves to limit our own voice and power. But Governor Ashcroft then vetoed these reforms, correctly pointing out that the ballot initiative is a really important tool, for voters who have no influence in the halls of Jefferson City. He actually even scolded politicians who sought to use their power to take away from the voters. It's very ironic because now his son, the Secretary of State, Jay Ashcroft, is really leading a lot of the charges and asking for these reforms to the initiative petition process. Excuse me, but just like 30 years ago, today voters are still not asking for these changes. In fact, a majority of voters opposed any attempts by the state legislature here in Missouri to make it harder for voters to pass laws or to amend our Constitution. When we have 20 bills filed in Jefferson City to change the initiative petition, and none of them have been requested by a Missouri resident, we know that these changes aren't being asked for by our folks, but instead special interests. And frankly, if we wanted to change the system, we could do so ourselves through the petitioning process. So it's very but we know that the ballot initiative here in Missouri is the people's power. Frankly, we've also used it a lot more infrequently than some politicians are suggesting, and using it only about one time, referring one issue to the ballot for every 4 that the state legislature is sending our way. So once again, we put one petition on the ballot. Typically, the state legislature is putting about 4 on the ballot per election year with that ratio. But it's also just a very critical part of our toolkit of democracy. And it's because it maintains the balance between people and the politicians that are elected to serve us. But now special interests are trying to influence reforms that are not really reforms, but they're straight up repeals of the initiative petition process. But we can stop them if we work together, and we're going to talk about how. Our first path is to educate while tapping into the heart of our neighbors. We need to remind people what the initiative petition is, what they are, and why we value them. Initiative petitions are not about a number of signatures we gather or where we need to gather them. The fact of the issue that our public will, freedom, and our heritage of Missouri is trying to be taken away for political power. Getting into the details of the issue, frankly, is not very engaging and people get lost. With over 20 bills, all frankly slightly different from each other, it's really easy to get confused. And frankly, I still get confused with all the details. But if we talk about our values and how this will impact our everyday processes here in the state, it is a very powerful step into having folks understand the scope and the magnitude of this issue. Next, we have to expose the motivation behind these so-called reforms. And I'm also going to share the slideshow with folks for people to be able to refer back to and look at these slides a little bit more. But if voters aren't asking for these reforms or straight up repeals, we have to ask ourselves, why are politicians doing this to us then? The point is, and some politicians will say this, if they don't want to follow our direction, we have to then implement our own initiative petition process. We've heard several politicians say, I'm proud, quote, this is a direct quote we've heard from representatives in Jefferson City. I am proud to stand against the will of the people of my district. They are proud to do so because they think they know better than voters in their district. We're seeing that representatives and state senators are straight up saying they do not respect our voice and they want to silence us. So it's really important to explain the goals and what they're trying to do. And then lastly, what we can do collectively is take action together. There are many ways that the 65 plus organization coalition across Missouri is working together to try to stop these repeals. We are working on phone banks throughout the month of April to contact targeted legislators. We have a lobby day on May 3rd that we're really excited to show up and flex our coalition power to say, hey, the legislative session's winding down, but let's not prioritize these initiative petition or IP bills. This is not the priority. If you're a representative or a part of an organization, we would love to add you to the 65 plus organizations, a part of this coalition. You can sign on to our letter. If you're an individual is still down to protect the initiative petition process, we'd love to have you sign our petition. We're base building and growing our list of people ready to organize and mobilize to protect our constitutional right to direct democracy. But with that, you can connect with some of the organizations a part of this work, but the National Council of Jewish Women in St. Louis already is a part of this work. So reach out to Jen if you want to get more involved. But with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you so much. Here for any questions or comments.
Ashton, the question I get the most often is how are they able to do this? You know, like, for example, with the puppy mill initiative, gosh, it's been 10 or 15 years with Prop B, I remember. And the voters in Missouri overwhelmingly voted on that, and then they just overturned it. How do they do this? What's the best way to answer that?
That's a really great question. And frankly, they are able to do that because they are writing bills and writing ballot language to overturn what Missouri voters have passed in a very confusing way. We just saw this with Clean Missouri and No on 3. in 2018 and 2022. A lot of the changes that the people of Missouri enact are constitutional amendments, so refers a larger of votes to get onto the ballot, like I mentioned. It's frankly a lot easier for legislators to put proposed constitutional amendments onto the ballot. So a lot of times they package these repeals of our legislation as an actual extension of it when it, like I said, actually repeals it. So they lean into complex language, intentional confusion, and really good branding. And it's our job as activists and organizers to actually break down what it says and spread a little light onto the true intentions of some of these bills we see. But they're able to do it because they have a little bit more power in writing the bills and the language. However, if it is really bad language, like we have seen in the past, where the ballot language or the summary of a bill was a straight up lie, and then we have to sue and hold them accountable so we know what we're actually voting for. Hope that answers. I see Nancy's hand is raised.
Yeah.
I was going to say one of the things about initiative petition in particular is, and I see this as a pattern, but I think it applies here, is the place they started was with an assumption that there are too many things being added to the Constitution. There are too many new amendments. Our Constitution is very cluttered, and so they're helping that by making fewer IPs, particularly ones that are amendments. And I think we can sometimes get sucked into playing their game. My contention is that there aren't too many, because even though a lot of them start out, very few make it to the actual ballot. And so my thing is, I think we need to look at the position that challenges their underlying assumption and not worry about are 10 too many or 20 too many. Let's all agree from the beginning that there are too many, and then we'll talk about how many there should be. No, I don't want to agree in the beginning that there are too many.
I love that, Nancy. Thank you. I haven't heard it framed like that this year yet, but I agree. Understanding where their assumptions are coming from first is a really great way to kind of meet them where they're at and understand their perspective, by also challenging a little bit of those notions. Anything else?
Anyone have any other questions? Well, we are definitely going to put a call out for volunteers to join in the lobby day on, was it May 3rd? We will definitely be putting out information about that in the near future. It's a little early right now, but we look forward in the 5 ways to advocate in upcoming 5 ways to advocate. And also, we are going to be submitting a letter to the editor on the initiative petition process in the Jewish Light from NCJW. So look for that in the next few weeks as well. But it looks like that Delbrett has a question.
Actually, I was just going to share a comment. It looks like we're getting to the end. I wanted to thank you all and thank Ashton. As you may notice from my signage, I'm actually running for the Missouri House of Representatives, and I'm a big proponent. I agree in the initiative petition process, and I would do everything in my power to ensure. I think it's an excellent way for Missouri voters to have their votes heard, even on smaller issues. So I'm a big proponent of this issue.
Thank you. Please remember that NCJW is a 501c3 and we do not endorse candidates, but we appreciate that you coming today and telling us about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marilyn?
Ashton, question for Ashton. Do you have, from your presentation, do you have a fact sheet that Jen could email to all of us on the initiative petition? I have an understanding of it, yet there is still so much to process that something we could see in writing might be helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will say, I keep forgetting to share this week because it's brand new. We just launched a website that has more information that you can access at any time. I'll put that in the chat, but we do have some one-pagers, especially if you're ever interested in talking to a legislator and writing a letter to the editor or anything. We have so many different talking points and ways to break this down. So I'll happily share that with Jen for folks to.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, one other thing at the very beginning, Jen, you mentioned the March 30th Lobby Day on Human Trafficking. And because we're getting such an early start, the program with Senator Williams and other speakers in the rotunda is from 8:30 to 9:30. Then we'll be handing out material. We'll be doing our lobbying. There's a good chance we might be through with the day unless others want to stay longer and visit other legislators for other topics. Probably around noon, 1 o'clock, we might be through at the Capitol. So the presentation itself is only 8:30 to 9:30.
Thank you, Marilyn. I appreciate that. I, for some reason, assumed it was an all-day event and I was wrong. So thank you. I appreciate that.
In the past, there have been display tables and vendors and we're not doing that this year. So we're trying to be as safe as we can COVID-wise in the Capitol.
Understandable. Yeah, you definitely want to wear your mask down there. Are there any other questions or comments? Well, I think then we will wrap up fairly early. I do want to remind everyone that we have another great lunch and learn coming up in April. It's going to be on the topic of victim advocacy and child abuse. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And I don't know if everyone knows this, but there's a wonderful program in St. Louis called the Child Abuse Prevention Program, and it's run through Jewish Family Services. And it goes out and talks to kids from ages 3 to 12 or 13. And NCJW actually founded that program. And basically it talks to them about how to protect themselves against sexual abuse. So it's a wonderful program, and we're always very happy to amplify what we can do to help prevent child abuse as well. And Nicole, the speaker is someone that you know personally, correct?
Yes, he's wonderful.
Okay, great.
Very good, dynamic speaker with personal and significant professional experience in this field.
Great. So hopefully you all will join us and look again, more information on that in our 5 ways to advocate. Ashton, do you mind if people contacted you as well, if they have questions, do you mind putting your email in the chat? Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, that would be great. Because Ashton is one of the experts in St. Louis on this issue. And so we're lucky to have them in this area in St. Louis in general. So, and we cannot thank you enough for all that you're doing for this. It's so important. It seems like every year the legislature has some sort of effort to overturn the will of the people. And it's frustrating, but it's also very rewarding when we can make a huge difference and make sure that they don't do that. So, well, Nicole, do you have anything to add before we sign off?
I really don't. I just want to thank everybody for coming and learning over their lunch hour.
Yeah, thank you. And let me know if you have any questions, and thanks again all. And oh, by the way, before we leave, I will be, I'm going to send out, number one, a link to the if when I get from Ashton, some of the slides, and then also a link to our evaluation, if you would be so kind as to fill that out, so we can always continue to improve our programming and make sure that everyone is getting what they want out of our Lunch and Learns. So thanks so much. And enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.